Okay, you ready to rock? Yeah, so normally there's a big light here, but I don't know, can they both burn out at the same time?
No.
I know.
That's just weird.
Yeah, they were gone, and then so I quickly grabbed something. This is actually the Donovan Bailey ring light here. So. All right, let's talk on the recording now. Let's not waste all this gold, Tom.
So there's no video though. It's just audio, right?
No, well, technically there's video, but 99.9% of people will just hear the video. But you are technically on this guy right there. So, yeah, if you want to be a TV star, but really, most people will never.
I already am.
Well, I know. So I hear. I have my notes here. Okay, let's get going here. Let's rock and roll with Tom Hayes. Here we go.
What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1412 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Tom can't wait to crack open his lager, but not yet.
Is that not my cue?
That's
not it?
No, not yet. Okay. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mic debut, is Tom Hayes. Okay, on the mic though, lift it up. He's got a lager from Great Lakes right in front of this guy.
It's already my most favorite interview ever. Here we go.
All right, cheers to you. I'm going to crack one as well. So you cracked a lager. I'm going to crack my burst.
It's nice and cold.
Cheers. All
Cheers.
right, good to meet you.
That's for the on-camera part.
Good to meet
nice to meet you
a big-wig celebrity like Tom Hayes. How's it going? How was the drive?
It's pretty nasty out there, but it's not too bad.
How was your 3-hour commute? Because you came from the other side of the world, is that right?
Yeah, pretty much to where you live.
I actually felt bad.
Away.
I feel bad. Like when somebody's in Pickering and I'm like, yeah, you got to drive whatever all the way to South Etobicoke. I actually feel bad. But then my friend told me, no one's making these people come. Like they're deciding they're going to make the trip to be on the podcast in person. Why do you feel bad? Why do I feel bad? Are you an armchair psychiatrist? Why do I feel guilty that I made you come all the way from Pickering, which sounds like it's far away?
It's actually not that far away, and that's not.
Now I feel better.
That's not actually where I came from. I was teaching today, so I just had to come south from Seneca. Okay. And I knew the beer would be cold, so it's all good.
Cheers to you. It's a pleasure to meet you. And we got some ground to cover here today, but I have a special clip I want to play off the top.
Oh.
Are you ready, Tom Hayes? I feel like this is this is your life or something here.
Really?
But let's listen here.
Should I be worried?
Tommy Hayes. What can I say about one of my very, very favorite people? Tom is, wow. Gosh, I could go on forever, but I know I don't have that much time. So I would say Tom is just one of those guys that when I think back to my time in news, he is for sure one of the people that comes to mind right away because he not only was a great friend, a great listener, but he was an incredible mentor. When I started at CTV, he was for sure one of the people that I looked up to because he just had it all. He knew how to tell a story like nobody else. He was so compassionate. He was so concise. He was the best fact finder, but he was also such a great friend. And that's how everybody would describe Tom Hayes. He's just a great, great guy. And wow. I had the privilege of sitting with him at the anchor desk every weekend for quite a few years. So we had quite a special bond. And I absolutely love his 1 minute morning. it's one of my go-tos now. So I urge everyone to go check out Tom Hayes News at 1 Minute Morning. It's really cool. Anyways, I am rambling, and Tom would not like that.
No, keep going.
So I have to say that he's a swell guy, and please send him my very best.
Dana
Levinson.
Oh, so
singing your
sweet.
praises.
Isn't that nice?
That's the nicest thing I ever heard. If only she said such lovely things about me. Tom, listen, Dana recorded that for you. I produce her podcast, and I said, "Oh, Tom Hayes is coming on," and then she sent in this recording. Now I don't know why she sent in this. Like, it sounds like it was recorded in some old. Actually, old telephones would sound better than that. She has a good microphone. I have to teach Dana how she can record on her good microphone. But the content is what's king. What would you like to say to Dana? She's listening right now.
Well, I gotta collect
You need a
myself.
moment. Okay, well, drink your beer, collect yourself.
Oh, I did that already. That was so sweet. Dana and I worked together for many years on the weekends, which can be a bit of a long slug working weekends. And so Dana did weather, and I was the anchor, and we worked on the street together too. So it was a pleasure working with her, and I'm really happy. She's really sort of left that world behind and gone to a whole new level. So thank you, Dana. That was so sweet.
It's the highest of praises. As I'm listening to that, I'm like, wait, there's another 45 seconds left? Like, is she going to start talking about how handsome you are? Like, it was so
We could
many,
just start it all over again from the beginning.
I can send you that audio, and it could be your ringtone. Like, if you call Tom Hayes, you're going to hear Dana singing his praises there. So thank you, Dana, for sending in the clip.
Thank you, Dana.
All right, we're gonna kind of keep it chronological, but I'm gonna do some a little bit of housekeeping off the top. One is this: I'm gonna give you homework. Your homework, Tom, is you're gonna listen to the Thomas Brothers on Toronto Mic'd, because that was recorded yesterday, and I absolutely loved it. It was just me, Dave Thomas, and his younger brother Ian Thomas. We all met on Zoom and just shot the breeze for 2 hours. It's quite something. You got to check it
It's
out.
impressive.
It is. It is. And your homework is to listen, because I just sort of let them chat. I popped in once in a while, but I just let the brothers chat. It was they're very interesting people with a very interesting background from Dundas, Ontario. And it's kind of like you're like a fly on the wall as they chat things out.
And
It's
both
fun.
equally successful in completely different worlds.
If you had to get, who do you think this discussion emerged in the we have a FOTM group on WhatsApp, and who's the more famous brother, like globally? Like, who is the more famous Thomas brother? Is it Ian Thomas or is it Dave Thomas? If you had to just guess, there's no answer here.
Well, as a kid, it would be Ian Thomas, right? Painted Ladies, all that sort of great music. But how can you beat the Mackenzie brothers?
Yeah, okay. Because to me, in my universe, it's not that close. Like, Dave Thomas is more famous. But then you have to kind of look at it from a different perspective, like a global perspective, and take into account that great catalog of music that Ian has written. And it's closer than I thought. But, an argument was put forward. It might be Ian Thomas might be the more famous brother.
He might be. Is he still producing music?
Yeah. He's got a new album coming out in March.
Wow. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Okay, here's an off-the-wall question here before I play a little music. Perry Lefko asks, is Tom Hayes still into wrestling? I think I saw him one time at an indie show, maybe an indie MMA event. Does he have the right Tom Hayes here?
What?
So have you ever been to an MMA event?
No.
You've never been to like an indie wrestling
No,
event?
and I've never wrestled publicly.
Any interest? Like, were you ever into like the WWF or the WWE?
No, never been my
this
thing.
is mistaken identity then.
I'm a pathetic Leafs fan. That's about it.
Join the club here. You see my picture of Wendell Clark here.
Wendell.
I'm living
Cheers
in the
to
past, man. Cheers to Wendell.
And Dougie.
And
Dougie. Still miss them.
Okay, Dougie. Can I tell you this? Dougie's my favorite Leaf of all time.
Me too.
And in 1992, December of 92, I bought a replica Leafs jersey with the A on it, and it was 93 Doug Gilmour. And the other day, Mark Hebscher was here. Do you know Hebsy?
Sure.
Do you know him or you know of him? Like,
I think we've met a couple of times, but Sportsline was huge.
Yes, guy. So anyways, Hebsy's like, yeah, after I record, this is like early this month, and he's here, Hebsy, and Hebsy goes, yeah, I'm on my way to, I think he was going to Burlington or something. He goes, I'm on my way to see Doug Gilmour. Do you want anything signed?
Wow.
I ran upstairs, I got my jersey, and Killer Doug Gilmour has signed my jersey, and at some point, hopefully, Mark Hebscher gets it back to me. But isn't that awesome?
That's all. I have the exact same sweater at home with the A on it.
Yeah.
And I think the 75th year patch of the Stanley Cup and Dougie's signature on it as well.
Amazing, amazing. And he was the A because this gentleman, number 17, Wendell Clark, had the C.
That's right. And then he became the C after Wendell went to Quebec.
That was a big trade. What a big trade that
for
was.
Mats.
For Mats Sundin.
I did that story that day. I'll never forget the clip I got. I ran to a hockey rink. These guys playing pickup hockey just after Wendell got traded.
Yeah.
And the comment was, how do you trade a guy named Wendell for a guy named Mats?
Do you remember what arena this was?
So this would have been Commander Park Arena just north of CFTO off McCowan.
Okay, yeah.
An old barn.
An
like
old
a real
barn.
barn.
I was just in an old barn on the weekend. My
Not
kid,
many left.
Weston, it was Weston Lions Arena. And I'm in there, and it was from 1945. But I had previous in my life, I'd spent a lot of time at George Bell Arena, which is kind of an old barn. But I was in this Weston Lions Arena. It still had that smell. It had that feel. Like you could film it if you were making a movie and it was like a 1950s hockey game or something.
Sure.
That's your location.
The wood.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I miss those old barns too. All right, Perry Lefko, you got the wrong guy. Okay.
Thanks, Perry. Wrestling. Wow.
I don't know. What he thought you were in. I don't know. Maybe he mistook you for, maybe it was Tom Brown or something. You still in contact with Tom?
I don't think Tom's a wrestler either. But you know what? We do talk now and then. We get together. We used to ride together too. So
What do you mean ride? Like a motorcycle?
motorcycles.
Oh, you're a motorcycle guy.
Yeah. So I'm a Harley rider. And so was Tom. And so we would go out on occasion together. And he was out in Pickering as well too. I don't think he is anymore, but good guy.
I get a lot of notes. I did reach out to him on LinkedIn trying to get him over here. I get a lot of notes.
And what did he say?
He was into it. So we just have to kind of make it happen. That's first step is being into it. Text him. A lot of people want to hear from Tom Brown, but a lot of people want to hear from Tom Hayes. But before we do that...
Yeah.
Someday you remember me and picture my face. Someday you may smile at me and I walk away. Yesterday I needed a book, today I need a bank. But I know who was always there. It's me that I have to thank.
You a Teenage Head fan?
Oh my God, you can play that whole album for me right now. I was a huge,
I do that.
Huge Head fan. Huge Head fan.
So the news I posted on Twitter was I'm finally going to go, I want to do an episode. A lot of times this band comes up on Toronto Mike, especially when I have Ivor Hamilton on or one of the Hamilton guys. That's funny. Ivor Hamilton's last name is Hamilton, but he's not from Hamilton. But he's from like Brampton. But the Hamilton guys and the Ivor Hamilton is a lot of Teenage Head talk. But I have Dave DeRoche, I think is his
Dave
real
Rave,
name.
yeah.
Dave Rave is going to be my special guest for a deep dive into the history of Teenage Head, and I posted that, and you said...
Oh, you should get
to
Steve on as well, too.
I would do that. Okay, well, you're going to hook me up with all these... You're going to become the booker, man. Like, this is what happens. You're
I'll be
gonna
your agent.
Listen, I'm glad you're here.
It's for free beer.
I believe their Teenage Head is... They're still playing the odd event here and there. They're playing something. I think the Canadian Comedy Awards or something. They're playing in Hamilton, like, next month.
Are they? It's such a shame. What an iconic band. And being a musician as well, too, and having my own band since way back, 1981, the pinnacle of my musical career was opening for Teenage Head.
Okay, give me detail. What's the name of this band?
Twisters. The Twisters. So
And where did you open for Teenage Head?
Twice at a charity gig way back in the early 90s, and then later at some other bar in the East End. I can't even remember where it was, but man, they were so much fun. Just great music, great rock and roll. I know everybody thinks they're a punk band,
Doesn't say,
but they're just a great
listen.
rock and roll band.
Doesn't sound punky to me, right?
No.
And the tragedy, of course, in in 2022 was losing Gord Lewis in such a tragic manner, and
It was horrible. And there's the sound of Teenage Head right there. And I knew Gordy as well too. You know, we used to talk guitars and stuff the odd time on texting. I knew their road manager really well. I still do. So it was just a horrible
The worst.
ending. Really, really the ending of Teenage Head as we knew it. Well, you could say the same about Frankie as well too.
yeah, Venom. Yeah. There's, I mean, all this is going to be broken down on Toronto Mike coming soon. By the way, I want to shout out Great Lakes. They've been sponsoring the show for a very, very long time. But every time I crack open a fresh can, it's like I'm enjoying it for the first time. And this burst is delicious. How's your Great Lakes beer?
I'll do the shout out because it's the first time, and this is good.
So you've never had a GLB before?
No.
Okay, well they're in like LCBOs around. Yeah, they're in LCBOs around you, and I'm
In
going to
Pickering?
send in Pickering, yeah, across this fine province, and I'm going to send you home with some cans so you can sample a little more.
I knew
GLB.
that. That's why I came.
Would you like Italian food?
Of course.
I'm going to
What
send you
else have
home
you
with
got?
I got a large meat lasagna in my freezer for you,
Oh.
courtesy of Palma Pasta.
Oh, I might come back.
Palma Pasta. Listen, it's delicious, and you're going to report back. And I always say this, best Italian food you can buy in a store, and you're going to concur, man. You're going to
Wow.
cook that up and tell me, Mike, that was amazing.
Great. This is dinner night for me.
And hey, since I'm doing this right now, I do have a measuring tape for you, Tom. You never know if you have to measure something. That is courtesy of Ridley Funeral Home. They're pillars of this community since 1921.
Sound effect.
So measure what you wish. That's between you and your God. And you got your lasagna and you
I
got
think
your
I've
beer.
pulled it
You got
out.
a great plate.
I think I've pulled it out too far.
Hey now. Okay. What the hell is the Edward R. Murrow Award? I want to know exactly what it is because it sounds prestigious. And how did you end up winning one?
Wow. Okay. So,
Like a rocket, Tom. We're out of the gates like a rocket here. Edward R. Murrow. Big name.
famous journalist Edward R. Murrow from back in the day. The award is given out to the best feature report of the year, and I won it for a feature report I did. Geez, when was that? 2005 or something like that. So I like to say it's kind of like our Oscar award.
So do you share that with, is it a team that wins it, or is it like, no, this is for Tom Hayes?
Yeah, well, it was my story that won it.
Okay.
So, and I worked with a specific camera man as well, Pat Dara.
Okay.
But it is generally given to the station. So when I found out I won,
And by the way, what story? I'm sorry. What was the story? that won?
it was a story called Summer Winter. And it was, so what we did is we shot half of it in the middle of summer, then we shot the other half in the middle of winter.
Okay.
The exact same locations, and we kind of cut back and forth or whatever, and it just worked out really, really well.
Okay.
So no, they generally send one trophy to the station, and I said, if I'm winning this thing, you better order two, and they did. So
Oh, so you got one at home.
I've got it
in
hanging on my
Pickering.
wall in my office,
And what is it, a plaque?
just a plaque.
No, but then, you could drill a hole in the plaque and wear it around your neck like Flavor Flav wore his clock.
I could.
And I would just wear it all the time. Here's my Edward R. Murrow Award. Deal with it.
You know what? It's funny because you ask about what is it, and a lot of people don't understand that it's a prestigious award.
Yeah. It's like the leg lamp in A Christmas Story.
Exactly. So yeah, maybe I'll get a chain for it.
I would never take it off. I'm just telling you, if I ever win an Edward R. Murrow Award, I'm going to drill a hole in that plaque. I'm going to wear it around my neck with a chain, and I'm never going to take it off. But you know what? There's no risk at this happening. I'm no Tom Hayes. Okay, let's go back to the beginning here.
Way back.
You and I, okay, we both went to U of T. That's
Yeah.
a fun fact. I was at St. Mike's College campus. You're in Scarborough.
Right. Right.
Does that even count? I remember we were snobby about the people at
You were
Arundel and
totally
Scarborough.
snobby. It was always like that. My university education is kind of strange because it took me, I think, 26 years to finish.
Okay, that we call those people doctors. No, they don't even take that long.
No.
But
So I was going to U of T in Scarborough for 3 years, and then I bumped into TV news. And
okay, how does that happen? Like one day you're going to class and then you accidentally walk into a cameraman and you're like, oh, let me do
no.
this.
So if you want to go back to the beginning.
Yeah, let's get the origin
Right?
story.
So I was born on the Danforth, grew up in Scarborough. And if you grew up in Scarborough, you played. You played an instrument, and everybody wanted to be a rock star. And that's what I wanted to be. I thought I was going to be a musician. I thought I was going to be a rock star. And we had a pretty good band together, high school band. We won some Battle of the Bands. We were going some places. Then we had this big audition for this agent who wanted to take us to Florida and record us. And the audition or the showcase was at Larry's Hideaway, an amazing place. It's not around anymore. And the agent came in, watched 2 songs, and then left. And that was it. It was over. It was over.
Right.
So not long after that, I'm at home in Scarborough, and I just see this little ad come up on Channel 10. They're looking for volunteers. And Channel 10 Scarborough, Cable 10, had a daily newscast. And I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And I think it was like 20. And I walked into Scarborough Cable. I saw that bank of monitors in the control room, and I knew right then and there.
Okay, let's tell the youngsters, because the whole Cable 10 thing, I grew up with it too. We had a location on like Scarlet Road in St. Clair, I want to say, around there. We had our Cable 10. And of course, I've had many people like Ed the Sock will come on, or even Stu Stone and Cam Gordon talk about, or Mike Wilner. They talk about the shows they had. Oh, you know who else? I think Pagan had a show. Was it with Michael Landsberg? I want to say, yeah.
Really?
Like,
on
so
Cable?
Yeah,
10.
on Cable 10. And they were Newtonbrook Cable. So can you remember, like, well, how did it work? Did each borough have its own Cable 10?
Yeah, it was CRTC mandated. So each borough or town or whatever.
Well, at the
had
time,
to
I
have
guess
their
they
own.
had mayors, so I guess they were cities.
Scarborough wasn't a city yet. It was still a borough back then, I believe.
Okay, because 98 is when we have amalgamation. And I know when I was growing up in York, not York region, but the actual borough.
Yeah, so York never became a city. But Scarborough, North York, Etobicoke became cities. And then amalgamation, so those cities participated in the Metro Council, the Metro government. Remember Metro Chairman Godfrey?
Of course.
And but then amalgamation happened under Harris, and all those cities just became the city of Toronto.
Right. Okay.
Except York. York never did become a city.
Okay, because Alan Tonks, like we would go to we would vote in Alan Tonks. What was his title? Like he's not mayor of York. What is he? He's just like...
So he was a councillor, but then he was also chair of Metro Council as well.
See, Tom, you didn't know I was going to put you on the hot seat here and grill you on them.
Not that hot.
Okay, but all these boroughs,
Right.
the 6 here, they all had their own Cable 10.
They all had their own Cable 10. Absolutely. So Scarborough, North York, Etobicoke, everybody had their own Cable 10. Toronto had a Cable 10 as well too.
Sure.
And it was mandated by the CRTC. So so Rogers Cable, if you wanted to be in business, you had to put a local Cable 10 station in each community.
What interesting. And people like a young Tom Hayes I guess you're going to U of T at the time. You can actually cut your teeth there. Like, do they pay you at Cable 10?
So great question, because I was going to U of T for 3 years, and then I walked into Cable 10, and I knew that was it. And you know what? I was not a great student in those first 3 years. I think my major was ball hockey. And
That was my major.
I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I just pretty much started living there, and it was all volunteer. And at the same time, I had applied to Seneca for their journalism program. I got accepted at Seneca, so I was going to switch. And at the same time, I got hired because the people who worked on the Daily News show were actually paid. So I got hired. My first job in TV news at Scarborough Cable, $9,000 a year.
Okay, I got to bring out my inflation calculator.
And I went out and got an apartment.
Okay, good old days. Good old days. So you're working for actual money at Scarborough Cable. And what are you doing there? Are you on the air?
Right. So I was a reporter there, and I would anchor their sort of weekend update as well, too.
Amazing.
Brilliant days because nobody watched. So you could just get away with anything.
Well, it's like Wayne's World, right? Like
Listen, so I heard a rumor. You got to get him on this show.
Michael Myers?
Have you reached out?
Oh, his brother has been on. I have not
Really?
yet. I got Paul Myers on the show. That's as close as I've got, Tom.
Okay, so here's the rumor I heard.
Okay.
That Wayne's World was modeled after what he saw on Scarborough Cable.
I wouldn't. Well, of course, he's a Scarborough guy. That makes complete
course
sense. It's
he
a
was.
cable access show.
Yeah, and we used to do all these
100% you're right, Tom.
wacky shows, these wacky, crazy shows in the afternoon on Scarborough Cable. And
Do you remember any of them? Because this is where, okay, so I can't remember which strain of Cable 10 it all comes from, but absolutely I would watch a show with Mike Wilner and a guy named Aaron Lobel. It was called Let's Talk Sports, and I used to watch this on Cable
Right.
10. But of course, I remember loving Ed the Sock on Cable 10. I think Harlan Williams was anyways, there were multiple co-hosts that were quite funny, but also Tom Green. I know this was an Ottawa Cable 10, but they would
Right.
air it on our Cable 10.
Right.
And The Buzz, do you remember The Buzz?
The Buzz. Yeah, I do remember that.
With Mo and Darren Jones, who's still on Toronto radio. Like, he's got a morning show on Toronto radio. But yeah, do you remember any of your Scarborough cable shows?
You know what? We used to play hockey, like tabletop hockey, live on air. We used to do these call-in shows. Your Opinion Counts was the name of the show, and it was just crazy.
And there would be
TV.
like, before we had obviously pre-internet, like if you needed to sell like a lawnmower or whatever, there would be shows where you could be like, I got a lawnmower
The
for
Trading
sale.
Post. We had that one. That's what it was called.
Where
The
else would you
Trading
go?
Post, right? So, Aunt Betty would phone in and say, I got a lawnmower I'm trying to get rid of. And then someone would phone in and say, I'll buy it.
Right.
That's good TV.
And that was like, it was fulfilling a need in the community, because your only other option was obviously the newspaper, but it takes a long time between, that and, this was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So you're on Cable 10. How do I get you from this Cable 10 gig that really delayed your university degree for decades, Tom? How do I get you to CFTO? I know there's a stop in between, but maybe tell us what brings you to Barrie so that you could have your stint on CKVR on your way to CFTO, or SIFTO, as Dana would say when she's
SIFTO.
chatting with her
Yeah.
friends from SIFTO.
So it's a common path, right? You go up north, you get better, and then you come back. So I was at Scarborough Cable working on the daily news program,
Yeah.
and I've always been a big political guy, right? So I love municipal politics, and we covered municipal politics. And back in the day, it was every 2 years that there was a municipal election. So I was hell-bent on covering every single person who was running for election. And there were like 35 of them. And I was out every day interviewing people, putting it together. And I just happened to come across a 401 at McCowan, and there's a huge, huge accident. A tractor trailer on fire. Numerous people were killed, and we're just there shooting it. So our studios weren't that far from CFTO. So I got back with the tape, and I phoned CFTO, and I said, hey, I've got this. And they're like, come over. So I walked into the CFTO, Fergie Oliver there, Gail Smith.
Okay, Gail, I have a quick, I know you're dropping names now, but Fergie Oliver was here this past summer.
Really? How was he?
He had been lying very low for a long time because of a certain YouTube supercut video that became very popular here. So he was lying very low. But his daughter is on Today's Shopping Choice, formerly known as the Shopping Channel, and she came over, and she's an FOTM like yourself. So welcome, you're now an FOTM, friend of Toronto Mike.
All right.
That's important. But Carrie Oliver is an FOTM, and I told Carrie that I would have her dad on, and Carrie brought her dad into the basement for like a really deep dive into his career to talk about that video and just have a conversation.
Yeah.
And it's just wild audio. It is unbelievable. You need to listen to Fergie Oliver on Toronto Mike. It's quite the episode. He's in his 80s now.
Yeah.
But it was a fantastic chat.
Oh, he was a legend. I walked in that room. I couldn't believe that Tom Gibney I'm looking at, all these
Gibney.
veteran reporters, Tim Sheehy, remember him, Tim, and all. Anyway, so I walked in with my tape. They took it, ended up being the lead story, and I left. And so the next Saturday, when I was working Scarborough Cable News, I just phoned up and I said, hey, can somebody take a look at my stuff? Just give me an idea. And who picked up the phone was a reporter called Peter Durant. And he goes, yeah, come on over right now. And I came over, he put my tape in, and he's just sitting there going, oh, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. So I thought, I'm starting at SIFTO Monday morning. And then he was the one that says, you got to go to CKVR, because that's where he came. CKVR was a very common place for people to go through. I think Christine Bentley came from CKVR. Peter Durant, George Bryson, all came through CKVR. So I ended up applying to CKVR. I got a huge letter back just kind of ripping apart my tape. All I remember from it is the first line. It said, Dear Tom, I think you might have potential.
Which is important.
Yeah, and then he kind of ripped my tape apart. And then at the end he said, we have an opening for a tape librarian who does a consumer report on air once a week. Do you want it for 6 months? And I said, I'll take it. Because I knew
this is in Barrie.
This is in Barrie. So I knew if I could get on,
Right.
if I could get on air once a week, I knew I could turn it into something.
Okay, good. You had the confidence and you had the endorsement. There's potential there. It's like, you know, you're not ready to play for the Maple Leafs. You got to go play for the Newmarket Saints for a little bit, and then we'll call you up. You see
I
that
covered the Newmarket Saints.
I know, I'm just going retro with you here.
I covered them the first year they started, and I hung out every Tuesday night in the Newmarket Arena.
Okay.
Let's see, who was the coach? Gardner was the coach. Jim Ralph was in net.
Wow. Jim Ralph.
Boy, who else played on that team? All sorts of...
Well, I had,
old
you know,
Leafs.
Gord Stellick was on the program.
Gord was the GM
Right.
of the Newmarket Saints. That's how I first met Gord.
Right. Gord's a good guy, actually. But you dropped a name here, and again, we're going to get you back to Sifto because you're there for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
Gail Smith. I get so many notes about Gail Smith. Do you have
still
any
get asked-
contact with Gail?
I still get asked about Gail Smith.
Yeah, she's sort of, you know why? Because what she did was she was high profile, okay, on Sifto. Then she was memorable for, some stuff that made the papers and some stuff that didn't. And then she was gone. And then she stayed gone. Like in that I'm sure she's still living in Toronto. I don't have any evidence of that. But she's not doing interviews. She's laying super low for decades now. People are always like, Mike, get Gail Smith on the program.
Really?
Tom, have you ever had any contact of Gail Smith in the last, 20 years?
No, I haven't. Now, Gail Smith was there for about the blink of an eye when I started there. And here's my Gail Smith story.
Yeah.
I walked in day one. Again, all these legends in front of me. I'm a kid from Scarborough who just was working in Barrie, and I'm sitting down at my typewriter. The first person to come up and sit down next to me and welcome me was Gail Smith.
Wow.
She came over. She said, "Hello, how you doing?" And I'm like, and I remember saying to her, if there's anything I'm typing for you, I'm typing the intro to the story. That doesn't work. I go, just let me know. Just let me know, right? And she just said, welcome. And she was the first person to do that. So
Nice.
it was very, very nice.
No, very nice. I mean, listen, I just want to talk to somebody who was so high profile, like Gail Smith, anchoring the new of Ken Shaw or whatever on CFTO, and then nothing for many decades. So if anyone out there knows Gail Smith personally, introduce me to Gail Smith, okay? I'm just throwing it
I'll
into
see
the
what I can
universe,
do.
Tom. See what you can do.
See what
You're
I
my
can
new booking guy. I know you have the Rolodex for all this. Okay, so you go to Barrie to cut your teeth and to put in some reps. And how do you get the call from the Leafs here? CFTO, obviously. Like, hey, Tom, you're ready for the big leagues. Capital City. Pack your bags.
Yeah, we all wait for that call, right?
Yeah, well, I'm
So-
still waiting, Tom.
All I wanted to do at CKVR was get back to Toronto. And the only place I wanted to work was City TV. It was rock and roll news.
Loved it.
Cool place, right? I'm a kid from Scarborough, play guitar. I liked what they were doing. So I spent weeks and weeks and weeks of putting a proposal together to go to City TV. And I had an interview with Hurlbut, the news director, and, his boots up on the table, why should I hire you kind of interview and stuff. So it didn't go great, but I was still hell-bent on working there.
Right.
And then we had this motivational speaker come to CKVR. His name was Bob Proctor. And he gave us seminars, and one lesson that he was teaching was the vacuum lesson, right? So give up something, that way you have to fill it up with something. So I put together this proposal, and I was hell-bent on walking into City TV with it, so I quit CKVR. I remember my boss saying, where are you going?
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to City TV. He says, congratulations. I go, no, they don't know yet. So I was just going to go and sit in the lobby and never leave. And at the time, my girlfriend, my wife now, said, why don't you just throw a tape into CFTO?
Right. Like a plan B.
Plan B.
Smart.
Right?
Your wife is smart.
My wife is very smart.
Tell her I said so.
Yeah. Met my wife when she was 16. I was 18. We've been together ever since.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
So I did. I just threw a tape in the CFTO on a Friday after I quit CKVR. Monday morning, the phone rings. Ted Stubing, executive producer, CFTO. says, come on in for an interview. And that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I never got to present my proposal to City TV.
Okay, with Hurlbutt, was that his last name? I know he's
Right.
he's not there anymore, but he's still with us. But I produced a podcast for these two gentlemen. You ready for a couple of name drops from
Sure.
City TV? John Gallagher and Peter Gross.
Oh, yeah.
So these guys, and this is-
Legends.
yeah, they would come to the basement. John would have his tumbler of wine. Peter Gross would sit here, see how the ponies are doing at Woodbine, and they would just tell these stories. And the stories, that gentleman was not liked by John Gallagher. John Gallagher did not like that news director.
Oh, no?
No. I'm just throwing that out there. It's all in Gallagher and Gross Save the World. Check it out. But I like you. I think we're similar vintage. That maybe you've got a few on me. I don't know, Tom. But I love that rock and roll style of the City TV newsroom and all of that City Pulse of Ann Mroskowski and Gord Martineau, both of whom have been on the show. I love Jim McKinney doing the sports. Here's a mind blow for you, Tom, before we get you to Sifto. Because that's what us insiders call it, Sifto.
That's it. Still do.
I mentioned Fergie Oliver dropped by last summer. You know who else dropped by?
No.
A guy named Harold Hossein.
Harold.
Hurricane Harold dropped by. Like, these are the cats I'm talking to. I got to get Jojo Chinto over here. Sadly, Colin Vaughn no longer with us. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. You, my friend, are starting, even though we both agree, City TV is the cool place to be. Sifto had the eyeballs, right? This was always number one.
Not even close.
Right.
So City was always great back in the day of saying they were competing. But when you looked at the numbers, there was just
Right.
there was no competition.
This is what
whatsoever.
I've been told.
I still remember when Sifto used to come on at 6:30. I don't know if you remember that. And City Pulse came on at 6. And then we were the bongos.
Yeah.
And then for Nightbeat News, right? Remember those?
The Nightbeat News, can I blow your mind right now?
Yeah.
I was so loyal to the Moses City TV News. I never caught any of your Sifto news. I've said this to Dana Levinson when she came over after 19 years at Sifto. I saw the odd promo on TV. I could see promos while I watched, I don't know, football game or whatever I was watching. But I never tuned in for Sifto because until they moved Moses out of the building and kind of until he left, I was pretty loyal to City Pulse and City News. So
Right.
there you go.
Well, it was a pretty cool newscast back in the day, and it was just what this environment, the news environment, needed, because they brought a whole different way of doing news to the television screen, and that was copied all across North America. So I got called into CFTO and offered a job right there on the spot. I was making $12,000 in Barrie,
Yeah?
and they offered me like 40.
Wow.
I know. And I'm like, and you know what I said? I go,
They're still offering 40, by the way.
can I think about it? Right? Because I was so determined to make this presentation
Right.
to City. And so yeah, I said,
Is this where your girlfriend says, Tom, what are you thinking about? You're going to the #1 newscast for $40K and the job offer exists in the actual real world. Tom, what are you doing?
That's almost verbatim what I heard when I got back to our apartment. Right?
Give your head a shake, man.
So I said to Lynn, I go, they just offered me a job. And she goes, how much? And she knows I make $12,000 in Barrie.
Right.
And I go, 40. And she was like almost bouncing on the couch. And she's like, oh my God. And I go, well, I said, I'm thinking about it. And then you can go through that whole spiel again. That's exactly what she said. So I ended up,
Well, she's right.
I phoned right back. I said, I'll accept, right? Look forward to it. And I had a great career. I really must say it was a fabulous place, 23 years.
1988 until 2011.
Yeah.
Wow.
And 13 years on the weekend, a number of those years with Dana and my pal Andrea Case.
Of course.
Kate Wheeler before that did weekends.
FOTM Kate
with
Wheeler.
Me. Yeah. I've heard that one.
Well, that's the one with Kate.
her and
yeah.
Christine
Christine
together.
Bentley. And that's, by the way, we recently did a FOTM, what do we call it? FOTM lexicon episode, because there's terms used on Toronto Mike that if you were new to the program, you wouldn't know what we were talking about because it's got its own language, so to speak. And one thing we talk about on the show, and it will come up in this episode, is the tap on the shoulder. Did you get the tap on the shoulder? And this comes from Christine Bentley telling me that even though it was spun as a retirement and they had a cake and everything, Christine Bentley, congrats on your retirement from CFTO News or CTV Toronto News or whatever it was labeled as at the time. The fact is, and she came on this show to tell us, she got a tap on the shoulder and somebody said to her, time's up, Christine.
Really?
Yeah. You have two options, Christine. You can walk out in a box, which is what Kate Wheeler did. Walked out with a box because she didn't get the options.
Right.
Or we can spin this as your retirement and make a lot of happy noise about it on the air with cake and everything. And she said she might regret it now, but at the time, her pride, she decided that she would take that option and spin it as a retirement. But as she told us all on this very program, when you tell the world you're retired, you don't get a lot of job offers. Like it's not good if you want to work for a couple more decades.
It's true. But you know what? I think that's you could probably apply that to everybody who's ever left the Toronto newsroom or retired.
Well, this true retirement is what, like Hebsy just did with Hebsy on Sports, which is like, I just want to golf and not think about stuff. Like,
right.
I want to enjoy the rest of my life. And then there's the tap on the shoulder retirement, which is like, oh, I'm going to have to do something else because I'm not done working. Right, Tom? Well, it's still going to come up further in the show, except that that episode of Christine Bentley and Kate Wheeler is a very memorable Toronto Mic'd episode, which introduced different lexicon to our glossary of terms. And it was really, for me, a guy who thought Christine Bentley one day decided I'm going to retire, just like I really believe that Roger Ashby retired. Like, I'm actually a naive fool who believes these things, and then I get told, oh, by the way, yeah, I would like to be still working there.
Yeah,
I didn't retire.
Some people do retire. Glenn Cochran, he retired. Jim Junkin.
I need to write down the name of the true retirements here, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, and others as
Peter
well.
Mansbridge retired.
Peter Mansbridge retired.
He swears to me that he swears to me that
right.
he chose to leave.
But usually when they say time's up, then time's up.
Time's up. That's the business. And, it happened to Rod Black. I mean, it happened to Michael Landsberg. There's a whole bunch of FOTMs who were told time's up. And then usually when time's up, you just negotiate how many dollars to go away, if you will. And there's a whole, that's a whole different HR component to it.
Or they just fire you.
Well, they need cause for that. This happened. Okay. And again, I have my phone here and I've even said too much. Maybe after I finish recording and we're off the air, I'll tell you about something happening as we speak regarding that. So remind me before we take the photo by the Toronto tree, as it is.
I recognize that tree when I pulled up, by the way.
So I mentioned we had the Thomas brothers yesterday. Dave Thomas, right off the top, he joins in. He goes, I see that tree in all the photos. You need a name for that tree. And I'm like, okay, well, Dave, he's a writer. Like he was in marketing and advertising, and now he's a great comedy writer for many, many decades. I'm like, you name the tree. I thought he was going to come up with a really cool name, and guess what he named the tree?
What?
Toronto Tree.
That's not bad.
I guess, except it's not very creative.
You can't beat a good alliteration. That's not bad. It's like 1 minute morning, right?
1 minute morning, which we're going to talk about.
Kind of rolls off the tongue.
Dana loves it, and I've been checking it out. I heard today's 1 minute 1 minute morning. I almost called it a 1 minute warning. That's a different show.
Well, it's a little take.
Yes, I enjoyed it very much. We're going to get into that. So in fact, maybe we should cook up gas here. So here, let's spend a little time in your CFTO years. I think most people know Tom Hayes from CFTO. And at some point they rebranded CTV Toronto. I guess that was like a Bell Media thing to do that. Okay, so
I was the last person to sign off Tom Hayes CFTO News.
That's a fun fact. That's a fun fact.
It is a fun fact.
Love it. Okay. It's like my buddy Humble Howard tells me he's the first person on the air to say Mix 99.9, but your CFTO fun fact is more interesting because CFTO was a big deal and nobody remembers Mix 99.9. Okay.
So I remember they were switching the name from CFTO to CTV News, and I went into my boss. I said, let me do this story, the switch. And he goes, you would do a great story about that. He goes, then I would be on the phone for a week afterwards. People complaining. So they never even announced it. They just did it.
They just did it. Okay, on this note, so I had an episode recently where we talked about 680 News. It was like 30th anniversary or something. And I had all these people, Scott Metcalf and all these Mike Epple and Richard Southern from 680 News, and they gave me a bunch of stuff. And like this is like a thing you put on your pants when you bike, so you're
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I got a bunch
Does
of
it say
stuff.
680 News
Yeah,
on it?
and I'm like, oh yeah, they said they have no use for anything that says 680 News.
That's right.
Because they rebranded.
rebranded.
6 City News 680 or something.
I don't
So,
get that.
Well, I
How do you play with a brand like 680 News? I remember when 680 News started, I was in Barrie
right
when CFTR disappeared
93
and it became, was it 93?
because it was 30th anniversary in 2023. See, that's how I do it, and
Okay.
that was why Scott Metcalf. In fact, related here.
So I was at SIFTO.
yeah.
But such a
Related.
powerful brand.
Okay, so also there's a fan 1430 discussion to be had with Scott Metcalf. He was all over this stuff. He's a good FOTM. But,
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy. Okay, but you're a good guy. Now, I want to ask you about some interesting stuff that happened.
Sure.
And I even pulled some music to help us with this. So let me play a little bit of this. Because I don't know if it's my favorite Rolling Stone song, but it's right up there. Like, I absolutely love this Rolling Stone song. It was on Hot Rocks. I had the double. Well, my parents had the double album, and I listened to it often.
Classic.
And it's in Goodfellas. Scorsese's sitting on that SCTV documentary. Remember this thing they filmed at the Winter Garden Theater? Do you remember this? I don't know how long ago they filmed it, but 5 or 6 years ago. Do you remember
Really?
this?
No.
So Martin Scorsese was commissioned by Netflix, I think, to film a SCTV reunion. They
Wow.
even got Rick Moranis, because he doesn't do much anymore, but he participated. So you had Dave Thomas and you had Rick Moranis. You mentioned Bob and Doug, and basically everyone they could get. They, Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy, Joe Flaherty, all these SCTV people, all
Wow.
collected. They filmed this thing. I've talked to several people who were in attendance who said it was great. No one believes this is going to see the light of day because
Where is it?
It's in Scorsese's warehouse. I don't know where he keeps his footage, but he's not working on it, and it doesn't look like it's ever going to happen. But they filmed it.
Wow.
I know.
I guess it didn't turn out that well.
I don't know. I have no answer to why it's. I don't know. Dave Thomas was there, and he doesn't know why. So
All those
nobody's-
names. Wow.
Yeah. So this is just an aside because I'm thinking of Scorsese because I'm playing a song that I hear in Goodfellas. Tell me your Rolling Stone story.
Well, my Mick Jagger story. So, the Stones always rehearsed in Toronto before they launched a world tour. They were with Ballard and Cole, I believe, right? Was the management team out of Toronto. So they always rehearsed in Toronto before they started. And we got word that the Stones were landing at Pearson at this time. All the newsrooms knew. We all went out there. It was nighttime. And we could see them getting off the plane or whatever. And I thought, they're not coming out this gate. They're going to go out the private gate.
Right.
So I grabbed my camera at the time and we whipped around to the private gate. And sure enough, the limos start coming out. And I saw the one that Mick got into. And as it was coming out, I stood in front of it. And I wasn't moving. And I remember pointing at the driver, this big, huge, burly guy. And I'm just like, one comment. I got like one finger up. One comment. I just want one word from Mick.
Yeah.
And he's waving me out of the way. I could see him yelling at me through the windshield. And he's waving me out. And I go, I'm not moving. I go, I just want one comment. And he's waving at me or whatever. And then I got down on a knee in front of the limo. And I said, just one word. And at that point, he turned around and looked back into the limo. And as he looked back at me, he was laughing and he pointed. He points at the back window. And I get up and look. The window comes down and there's Mick Jagger, sticks his head out the window and gives me the interview that I was
Wow.
begging for.
Wow.
Begging for. Now, you know what's really cool? He didn't have to do that. They could have just run me over or move out of the way. So that was really cool of Mick, right? He didn't have to. Rolled down the window, shook my hand, gave me a couple of words, and off they went. And I've got the picture at home on my wall.
I bet you do. And were you already a Rolling Stones fan?
Who's not? It's the Rolling
They're out there.
Stones.
They're out there.
You know what? If you're not a Rolling Stones fan, it's still the Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger showing up, right, to do some rehearsing, right? So it's still a story.
great story.
It was a great story. And yeah, thanks, Mick, because I know Mick listens.
Now, on the darker side of things, you were assigned the Paul Bernardo trial.
I was on the Paul Bernardo.
Did they also
Yeah.
assign you like a psychiatrist to help you
No, that's a
cover
great. That's a great question.
Because they might do that today, right?
Oh, you know what? That happened at CBC. I think it happened at other stations as well too. I got off that trial on a Friday at the end of July. Monday was the Labor Day weekend holiday, and I had to work the Monday. There was no turnaround.
Do they think you're a robot, Tom? What's the deal? Because I mean, we know what we saw in the press, but I can't imagine what you would have seen in the courtroom.
We saw it all.
Yeah.
We saw it all. I mean, there was videos that were played which were just, what they often did during the attacks, they would turn the monitor away from the public gallery just so that the jury and the judge could view the evidence. But there was a lot of videos made between those two that was played in front of the public gallery. And we saw everything.
But on a serious tip here, Tom, are you okay? Are you okay following an assignment like that? Were you okay? Like, I mean, I know you have, you probably didn't have kids at the time though.
I did have, I had two girls at the time. And I remember they were, let's see, so this was 95.
Okay.
So I had a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Like, you are a human being and you're a compassionate human being. So you're going to bring that home with you. I just wondered if you were okay during that process.
So first of all, it is a job. You got to be able to develop a thick skin, and you got to be able to shut it off, because it's not a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job. It's always sort of with you. So I remember at the end of that saying to myself, I'm going to tell my girls this story when they're a little bit older, because that is the guy, Paul Bernardo, you want to teach your kids about, and how they actually did this, coaxing the girl, Kristen French, into a car, right? It was all very pre-planned and whatnot. So I remember once it was over thinking, I'm going to make sure I never forget this. Not that I could, but
no, you can't unring a bell. You can't unsee
No,
it.
it was disturbing. And we were there. I covered it with Pat Foran. We covered that every single day for 3 months. And I always referenced that trial as being the climax, the pinnacle of the 6 o'clock news. That story led the 6 o'clock news every single day for 3 months. And that'll never happen again.
Wow.
Ever. And the ratings were never higher than in that period. And most people got their news from the 6 o'clock news.
Right.
And it's a very different story today.
No, great point. And now it's so fragmented, and people are getting their news from 1,000,001 ways, including
Like 1 Minute Morning.
I know.
Did we say that enough? 1 Minute
here's
Morning.
My pledge to you, because when you leave Global, okay, which is only during the pandemic, right?
Yeah,
It's not that
just
long
a couple
ago.
years ago.
Yeah. I'm very hungry to hear what you've been up to, and I happen to know what you've been up to. I literally watched today's episode, and I've been checking it out, and I
Nice.
see it on Twitter. I know it's not called Twitter anymore. I'm going to call it Twitter if that's okay.
I still call it Twitter.
I like calling
I
it
still
Twitter.
say Skydome, though, too.
You go ahead, because we paid for
You
that
know what
thing.
I'm talking about.
Remember the big thing was, it's the price of a stealth bomber or something, right? Like it was half billion, so it was like 500 million to build the Skydome.
Yeah.
And they said, for that you can get a stealth bomber. I was kind of young at the time. I was a teenager, but I remember thinking, like, that kind of makes it sound cheap. Like it's just one airplane. You know what I mean? Like, is that supposed to make it sound expensive?
Without a removable dome.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna play my George Bell is gonna hit a home run in this place. Like, a stealth. Come on, what's the big deal here? Okay, well, we digress here. Okay, so you get the Paul Bernardo assignment, and why did you get that assignment? Simply because you are a great reporter, and they needed a good guy on this story.
Sure, let's go with that. It was just my time and place. It was going to be the biggest news story in the country,
Right.
for weeks and weeks and months, and I got assigned to it. And
But did you lobby for it? Like,
no, I did not.
Did others? I would think somebody trying to make a name for themselves in this market might want the highest profile.
Yeah, that's
assignment.
interesting. Have you ever talked to Lauren Honickman?
Are you kidding me? He's my lawyer. Many times.
Is he?
Yeah.
Lawyer for a good thing?
Usually it's slander. Okay, Tom, I'll be honest with you, but yeah, that's right.
Well, you know, Lauren
Libel, slander.
Lauren
typically.
was a big high-profile reporter during the Scarborough rapist years and whatnot when they were looking for Bernardo.
right.
But then he was leaving to become a lawyer at City TV.
Right.
And that's when Ben Chin took over. And Ben Chin actually covered the Bernardo trial instead of Lauren. So I think, I don't know, you'll have to ask Lauren. I think he was lobbying for it, but then Ben took over.
I literally, maybe during one of your stories, I'll quickly text him. Lauren replies to my text right away, and very, very dear FOTM. In fact, Lauren Honickman showed up at TMLX 14. We get together once in a while in the flesh. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because TMLX 14 was at Palma's Kitchen in December that just passed, and Lauren was there. Dana was there too, by the way. You would have loved it. Dana was there. Lauren was there. You would have loved it, Tom.
Right.
You're going to come to, well, Pickering's a long way away, but you're going to make the drive to...
It's not that far.
Okay. Why do I think it's far? Maybe because I biked there and it took a long time.
I don't know. I don't know why. Like I
Give me
always
Google
say,
Maps. What's going on here?
I grew up in Scarborough, and now I say I live in Pickering with the rest of Scarborough, because it's just that migration thing. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like everybody in Mississauga came from Etobicoke, right? So, and in Vaughan, everybody came from North York. So,
Freddie P tells me everyone in Brampton moved to Georgetown. This is what he tells
well, that's
me.
the next migration. I'm not going any further. No. In fact, I'm coming back.
Okay, but TMLX 15 is going to take place from 6 to 9 p.m. on June 27, 2014. No, 2024. 2014's passed. I got to get my years right. 2024. That's this year, everybody, okay, if I got my years wrong. I
Happy
know,
New Year.
I had brain
Is it
damage.
too late for Happy New Year?
Yes, Larry David would be very upset with you. So I'm just letting the world know, and you know, Tom, that TMLX 15 should be in your calendar again. June 27 from 6 to 9 p.m. You'll get your first Great Lakes on the house, and Palma Pasta will feed you. You can't go wrong.
Can't wait.
Okay. So all that because you mentioned Lauren Honickman, and I remember seeing him recently.
I know
Love
Lauren from the
Honickman.
streets. We spent many, many days.
He's a
on the
sweetheart,
streets
right?
together. Yeah, good guy. Good guy.
I think he's better than a good guy, Tom. I think this is a great guy, Lauren Honickman. Love this guy. He won't do social media, Lauren Honickman, but his son Asher is on Twitter. So if I ever need to communicate something, I have my way there. Okay. So you covered the Paul Bernardo trial, but you also would get assignments like if Lady Di, Princess Diana, were coming, or with Prince Charles. So which like that's a much happier assignment. Like it's like, yes, I won't have any like trauma from this. Hopefully.
No, and I'm not a big royalist. My wife quite enjoys the whole Lady Di thing, still does. But I'll say this. So here's my Lady Di experience.
Yeah.
So I was covering Lady Di and Charles in Toronto. Their ship, the Queen Mary II, was it? Was docked in Toronto. The two boys were on the ship. You'll often see film references of Di walking along the ship and hugging the two boys, getting down and hugging the two boys.
Right.
That's from Toronto. So I was there that night when she was coming back from a function, and there must have been about 50 people. This is 11:30 at night. I'm about to go live. And she gets out of a limo and heads for the boat and stops, and then goes over to the crowd and shakes hands and says hello to everybody that was standing there. And my wife was with me that night because I said, you got to come along.
Well, she's
right?
a royalist.
Yeah, you got to come along and have a look. And it was quite the experience. It really was.
I'll bet. I've
It's
seen
pretty
I've
cool.
seen
You
The
know what?
Crown.
I'll go
Tom,
back.
Go ahead.
I'll go back to Mick. That's one of those times when, this superstar did not have to do that. But they did, right? Mick did not have to roll down that window.
Right.
Lady Di did not have to stop and say hello to those folks who had been standing for hours waiting to get a glimpse. But they did.
Right. By the way, the Mick Jagger story that you told is wonderful. But is there any other like rock star encounters?
Oh, I got a better one.
Guy. You got a better one than that?
Paul McCartney.
Okay, I've heard of him. Tell me.
I hugged Paul McCartney. I hugged him.
Wow. Was it
I have a
consensual?
tattoo on my arm from the night I met Paul McCartney.
Is it his fingerprints?
Pretty close. So I took my daughter to the McCartney concert. This is probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
And he was playing Friday night, Saturday night in Toronto. We went to the Friday night show. The next day we get up, we see in the papers that he got off his bus at the hotel and was signing autographs and talking to people. And so my daughter goes, let's go back tonight. Let's go to the hotel. And I'm like, oh. And she talked me into it. I go, well, first of all, he's not going to the hotel. He's going right to the airport because he's playing Montreal in a couple of days.
Right.
So I phoned the newsroom. This is Saturday night. And I said, what do we got booked coming out of, right? And we had a real aviation guy there. He goes, they've got a private plane at this time coming out of this gate. And I'm like, that's got to be it. Yeah. So we go, let's go. I grabbed my White Album, my original White Album.
Wow.
We drove to the airport, and all these cars are in the parking lot. Like, nobody's supposed to know of this entrance. All these cars are there. And I see everybody holding albums and memorabilia. And I'm like, wow, we're in the right place. So we get out, and this car pulls up, and this guy, this big, huge security guy, gets out, and he yells at everybody, back on the curb. So we all kind of back up, and he starts walking the line. And he's like, who are you? Why are you here? Who are you? Why are you here? And he gets to me and my daughter, Kelly, and I had my White Album, and he grabs my White Album. What I realized he was doing, he was trying to weed out the eBayers. Right? He was looking for real people.
Good,
He was
yeah.
trying to get rid of the eBayers. He grabs my White Album and goes, what's the first song? Right. I know that album inside.
What is the first song?
Inside and out. And I'm like, the guy next to me who was at eBayer goes, back in the USSR. And I'm like, oh. And he goes, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to him. And he looks at the album again and he goes, what's the last song? And I go, number 9. It's actually Good Night. But number 9 is like the last song before it goes into Good Night. Right. And he goes, okay. And he gives me back my album. Then they start walking the line again, and they start choosing people. You come with us. You come with us. You come with us. And they get to us, and they keep going right by us. And as they come back, my daughter starts crying. We were at the show Friday night because they were asking, let's see your tickets. Let's see your tickets. Trying to find real people. My daughter's like, we're at the show Friday night. We came out here. And he looks, and he goes, okay, you two come with us. And I'm like, what's going to happen? And we went behind the tour bus, and there's Paul McCartney standing there with about 12 people he's talking to and signing autographs.
Amazing.
To. Amazing.
And those, you never have the moment where you're like, you must have like a CFTO badge, like media badge. You don't just flash
It doesn't
that
work with
everywhere.
Paul
It doesn't
McCartney.
work with
No, it doesn't work with Paul McCartney.
It might work with the
No.
body. I am a CFTO reporter.
No.
I'm entitled.
So my daughter gets up to Paul McCartney, and she doesn't want his autograph. She wants him to draw a peace sign. Okay. Because she wants to get a tattoo, a Paul McCartney peace sign.
Wow.
Right? So he draws her a peace sign, and he signs it as well, too. And then she goes, can I have a hug? And he goes, sure, love, sure. And he gives my daughter a hug. Wow. These two big guys standing right beside him, right? Gives my daughter a hug. And then I come up next with my White Album. I had a Marshall t-shirt on. He goes, oh, I love the t-shirt, man. Right? And I give him
You do
my...
a good Paul McCartney.
Thanks. So I give him my White Album, and he signs it and gives it back to me. And I go, can I have a hug? And he goes, sure, man, sure. And I reach in, I give him a hug, and I squeezed him, and I said, I love you, man. Because
that's better than the Mick Jagger. You didn't get a hug from Mick Jagger.
No,
that was on the clock.
I got a handshake from Mick.
Personal Tom Hayes time.
But so my daughter and I both went and got the tattoos.
So what is the tattoo? The peace sign?
It's the peace sign.
Amazing.
Here, can I show it to you here?
Yeah, if you want.
It's only a little.
Yeah, okay. So
right?
that's the way he drew it.
That's the way he drew it. Yeah.
I think it's amazing. By the way, so we're live at live.torontomike.com. Were you looking for the name of that boat? Because Moose Grumpy wants you to know it's Royal Yacht Britannia.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
So they're looking out for you on the live stream.
Thank
hello
you
to
so
Leslie
much.
And hello to Midtown.
Thanks for
Board
correcting.
and
What did
hello
I
to-
say it was?
I don't know. I wasn't sure what you said. But, and 1236 is here as well. Good to see you, Mark. Okay, good. Now, I want to ask you about this. I found this very interesting when I was doing my Tom Hayes homework here. The Hayes Amendment.
Oh, the Hayes Amendment.
To me, this is a very big deal when something is dubbed the Hayes Amendment. Unless, it could be, Bill Hayes is an FOTM, for example.
There's a lot of Hayes.
Any relation to Bill Hayes?
No relation to
or
anybody.
his son, who does Overdrive on...
Brian Hayes.
Brian Hayes.
I got an uncle Brian Hayes.
Yeah, you have an uncle Brian Hayes, but it's not the guy from
It's not
Overdrive.
him.
So you're not
No.
related to those Hayes.
No,
Because that
I'm
would
not-
make you related to John Derringer, who was a John Hayes.
So John and I had a couple of beers many, many, many years ago because I knew his name was Hayes.
Right.
And he changed it on a plane coming out to get the job at Q.
Okay.
But we're not related, but we got to be from the same Irish town some generations ago. So not related. There was other Hayes in Hamilton as well, too. And yeah, there's a few around. So
Okay, but a few in Toronto radio, which I'm sure many.
Yeah, Bill Hayes was a
Bill
legend,
Hayes is
yeah.
a sweetheart too,
Yeah. I wish I had that voice of Bill Hayes.
and he's a big Leaf fan like you.
Is he? Poor
Huge
guy.
Leafs fan.
Poor guy.
All of us are.
Poor guy.
Well, look, I mean, what year were you born? Is that a personal question?
No, 61.
Okay, so you have memories of a Stanley Cup.
I don't.
Oh,
No, because they
You're
won in
sick.
67.
yeah.
And so I was like 4, turning 5.
Well, you were born in 61?
yeah.
67 is not 4. Like, where's your math? Okay.
Well, 67.
You're a reporter?
Hang on, 67.
You'd be
I
6
was 6.
probably.
I've been 5 turning 6.
5 turning 6. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
so
It's hard to remember way back then. 5 turning 6.
no, you're right, because I always think,
No
okay,
memory.
when I was 5 turning 6, it was 1979, and then my memory of 1979 is minimal. Like, it's like I literally remember our French teacher teaching us how do we say 1980, because it was a big change in 1979.
Right.
You're right. So at 5, 6, your memories are shit. So you're right. I was gonna say at least you remember that. I mean, I've never been alive to see the Maple Leafs in a Stanley Cup final, but you have no memory of the Maple Leafs in a Stanley Cup final. So we're on
No.
the same page.
No, I remember my dad watching the games in the basement, the unfinished basement,
Sure.
on the stool.
Wood paneling.
Yeah, not even before the wood paneling.
Okay.
The wood paneling did come. It was a Scarborough thing, the wood paneling. And so I remember those, the odd game, but I do not remember the Stanley Cup.
So we're all living in hell here. This is,
Yeah.
it's,
Also, the Hayes Amendment.
yeah, okay, so the Hayes Amendment you're telling me the Hayes Amendment has nothing to do with John Derringer?
No.
That's a joke. Okay, tell us what the Hayes Amendment is.
So everything that we've been talking about, accomplishments or whatever, this is my greatest accomplishment, the Hayes Amendment. So there was a time, I'm going to say mid-2000s, that the date rape story was huge in Toronto. And what was happening is that young girls would go to the bathroom and they had to leave their drink on a table outside the bathroom.
Right.
And that's when idiots would drop stuff in them. And it was becoming almost an epidemic.
Yeah, so people would tamper with the drinks because they would be unattended, these drinks, outside washrooms and smoking areas and all that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I started looking into what was going on. And then I found out that the reason you couldn't take a drink into the washroom was because the washroom wasn't licensed. That was it.
Right, so the bar owner would risk losing their liquor license if someone brought a drink into the washroom.
Right. I thought it was a safety issue. I thought you're not allowed to bring glass in there because of a safety issue. So Nick DiDonato from Liberty Grand, he phones me up and he says, he goes, do you want to know, you know what the reason is? He goes, because that room's not licensed and this room is. It was the silliest, antiquated liquor law on the books. So I started doing a series of investigations. Jerry Phillips, the minister at the time, liberal minister at the time, he was in charge of the LCBO. He got wind of it, looked into it, and he changed the law. And he dubbed the law the Hayes Amendment. So he sent me a nice frame with the new law on it and with a handwritten note saying, thank you for the Hayes Amendment.
But there's an example of where reporting resulted in real good. Like there would be less, what do you call that? I don't know, the roofies or whatever people were slipping in drinks to take advantage of women at bars. That would be less if you could bring your drink into the washroom.
Of course, it's
so
safer.
your
You keep your eye on it.
Like obviously, I also have daughters. One of whom is, goes to bars. So 100%. There's reporting done by Tom Hayes at CFTO that had actual positive ramifications. So good on you.
That's what we're supposed to be about, right? We're supposed to be investigating, looking into things that are wrong in order to enact change. And if your daughter is still going to bars, there's still an issue out there. Because in order to get the bathroom licensed, you got to fill out a little form. That's it. It's online. Fill out the form. That's all. And there's a number of establishments who have not done that. So drinks are still restricted in some bathrooms in some locations. And if your daughter's out there and runs into one of these situations, she needs to tell the owner to
Okay, well, look, I'm
Get
gonna
up to speed.
I'm going to pass it on. Shout out to my daughter Michelle, who's currently in Montreal. I don't know what the Quebec laws are like, but
Little different, I'm
she'll be
thinking.
back here in the summer. Okay, so before we leave CFTO, and I'm going to find out why you leave. Did you get a tap on the shoulder? We're going to find out. This is a teaser. We do this in the business. Just kidding. Okay, you dropped a name. Like, okay, we talked about Dana Levinson. And you mentioned Andrea Case, who I've met a couple of times and seems lovely, and she's very close with Dana
Lovely,
Levinson.
yeah.
So can you just shout out some former, and you can, reiterate those two if you want, but shout out some former colleagues that you miss, that you worked with at CFTO Toronto and that you miss working with today.
Boy, we had a great stable full of reporters. So, and we all used to sit together. So there would be me.
And also, I'll point out, again, Mike interrupting, what
Yeah.
a rude host. But on Thursday, somebody's making their Toronto Mike debut, who I believe you worked with for many, many, many years. And
Drum roll.
well, when you say the name, I'll
Okay.
point it out.
So let's see. I'm visualizing this section of the Sifto newsroom.
Okay.
So there was me.
Okay.
Glenn Cochran sat in front of me.
Okay.
Austin Delaney.
Austin
sat-
Delaney makes his Toronto Mike debut on Thursday.
There you go. You better say nice things about me. Pat
I can't lie
Foran-
to anybody. You know that.
Pat Foran sat beside me. Jim Junkin sat right across from me. John Musselman. Who else? Jennifer Martin. Beverly Thompson sat in the same area as well too.
Of course.
So we had who else? It'll come to me. But we had some great names in that room.
I can imagine. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, why do you leave CFTO in 2011?
Why do I leave CFTO in 11? I got a phone call from City. So this is the post-Neimer era. The post-Hurlbut era. And I got a phone call and asked if I would be interested in coming over because they were starting a new sort of format. So they did news from 5 o'clock until 7 o'clock. So 2 hours. And I thought back to that proposal I had put together some 23 years ago. And anyway, we went and we chatted and I said, yeah, I'm in. When else do you get a chance to go and start something brand new? So that's why I left. And I went there and the original format wasn't great. So I actually went to see the president, Keith Pelly. And I said, look, I got an idea for a show here. And for some reason, I had Keith's ear. I met him in the elevator a couple
He's
times.
a reasonable guy. He's a friend of a friend. Yeah.
Really good guy. And I had to meet him on his lunch, and I'm pitching my idea, and he goes, I love that. He goes, go do it. He goes, but you're responsible to me. And I said, that's fine. And so that's when we started the show called The Five.
And that was your idea.
That was my idea.
Okay.
So we started The Five, and the whole idea of the concept was to sort of unformalize the news format. So we would just go with whatever was going on. So we would have your daily news always, but if something broke, and we didn't care where it came from. So if the Globe and Mail all of a sudden had a breaking story or something, we would just come on and say, my buddy Talbot, he would watch the wires and he would watch the internet.
Right.
And he'd say, Tom, we got breaking news from the Globe and Mail. This is just coming in. And we would report it. And I remember saying that to Keith, and he goes, I don't care where it comes from. I just want to hear it. And that's the same as any viewer. They don't care where it comes from. They just want the information.
Yeah.
So it was a little fly by the seat of your pants, and it was a little casual, and our numbers doubled in a year after that, and it was a great show.
Okay, so you're there from 2011 until May 2015.
Right.
Interesting note came in. So Mark writes in, it was weird when Tom Hayes showed up on City TV.
It was very weird.
Did you replace Mark Daly?
No.
Not that you can replace Mark Daly.
No. And I know Mark. Mark was a friend of mine. I had lunch with him a week before he passed away. No, Mark was gone by then.
Here, just because every time I mention his name.
The following program contains adult themes, nudity, and coarse language. Viewer and parental discretion is advised.
We all kind of grew up to that, didn't we?
The Voice. Yeah, I sure did. Yeah, absolutely. But to finish Mark's note, he says it was like seeing DC characters show up in Marvel because you were so
That's a great analogy.
CFTO.
It's a great
and
analogy.
suddenly you're on City News. By the way, the Moses era ends in like 03 or something like that. So the Moses era is long gone by the time you get there in 2011.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so, yeah, okay. So why was it weird for you? Just that you're on the competitor's turf all of a sudden? Like,
And
did
it
you feel
had
like a
never been
traitor?
done. Nobody's ever gone from CFTO or CTV Toronto to City. It just never happened because there was such a divide in between those two formats and those two stations. Such a divide. But I loved the switch.
Now, you did work with an FOTM at the City News at 5 there. Avery Haynes.
Oh, Avery.
What was it like working with Avery?
Avery's fabulous. So she worked with me on the 5 quite a bit. Co-hosted many shows with her on the 5 as well. We became really good pals, and she's fantastic, and she kills it on W5 now.
And
She is W5.
Yeah, listen, yeah, I think she's very talented, absolutely. And Frances,
Have you had Avery on?
Yeah, that's how she became an FOTM. She dropped by and we had a great chat about
Nice.
everything. Because she had that great moment on CTV Newsnet where she had a hot mic and she thought she wasn't on, and she
she thought she was being funny. And,
yeah. But then shortly thereafter, she was on City TV. So anyway,
well, she was on City before she went to CTV, and then she went back.
well, it was like, okay, yeah, there was, she was on CTV News Network, and then this moment where she got caught on the hot mic, and then she ended up on City TV, and then she ended up then she went to CTV, where
Yeah.
she is a big deal there now at the W5
Yep.
or whatever. So tell me, Frances D'Souza too. What was it like working with Frances?
Well, Francis and I worked on the 5 o'clock and the 6 o'clock news as well too. Got along well, did great stuff together, and I actually sat with him when I first went to City TV. So he was a good guy to hang out with and show me the ropes on how City TV was, how to get on the computer and all that. He actually signed me up to Twitter. And before I knew it, I had 50 followers.
There you go. He's the one. Okay. By the way, I don't want you to name names, but I just need to know yes or no. You have worked with assholes, right? Like not everyone in the the Toronto media landscape is a sweetheart, right? Like you have worked, maybe you won't name them now because you're a gentleman, but you could if you wanted to, but maybe you won't. But there are assholes out there, right? Like, because sometimes it sounds like everybody's a sweetheart. Then
yeah, no,
the assholes?
they're very few. But yeah, there's been some. But I haven't really had a problem with anybody that I've worked with. So
Well, who would have a problem with Tom? I want to know who has a problem with Tom Hayes.
yeah,
okay?
phone in now.
Phone in now. Let me know if you had a problem with Tom Hayes. We got to talk about that. Okay. Why? This is the big question. 2020. Let's get the years right. Okay. 2015. You leave City News. What happened?
What happened? First time I was ever fired. Ever. I mean, everybody gets fired eventually.
Well, not everyone.
No, that's true. You're still working at it.
Well, I've been fired. Don't get me wrong.
can't fire yourself.
You can't fire, I can't fire myself. But you know, it happens to many a great broadcaster, but it happened to you in 2015.
Okay, so what happened? We had this great show called The 5. It was smoking along. There was a little buzz going on. New boss comes in, wants to do his old thing. We didn't see eye to eye. Goodbye, Tom. That's the polite version.
And you weren't one of his people because he inherited you.
I don't think, not necessarily, but he was hell-bent on not doing what I wanted to do, which was wrong because we were doing so well.
That sucks, Tom. Like I'm just,
Totally sucks.
I think that sucks.
Totally sucks. I think the 5 would still be around today, to tell you the truth, and doing well. But I'm not bitter at all.
Okay, so you had to, when you were at CFTO for a million years and you quit CFTO to go to City News, but now the thing is now you have to start. Did you negotiate anything in? Like you got to start like at the clock at 0, so you only had 4
Going
years.
to City?
Yeah, like
Oh,
when
no.
it comes time to let's get rid of this guy and let's cut him a check. The check won't be as big because it's only a 4-year time period that you were at City News.
Oh, if you're smart, you negotiate that all
Well, that's
going
what I'm
into
wondering.
it.
Did Lauren Honickman help you with that? He can
No,
come in handy with
Lauren
that.
was long gone by then. Didn't need Lauren's help.
He's an active practicing lawyer today, so you can.
He is, still.
You can get a hold of Lauren right now. and hire him if you
What's
wish.
his rates, by the way? Is he
I'll-
like high priced
I'll
or?
let you know. I know I've been to his office, and it's at Young and King, so I feel like he'll be high priced.
So he's doing all right.
It's when your office.
Are
is
you
at-
the pro bono case he keeps talking about?
So yes, I am the pro bono case because I've never I pay him in lasagna and beer.
That's why I'm here.
And a measuring tape. Oh, on that note here, we're gonna find out what happens next year. You're booted from City News. And what is the exact dollar amount, Tom, of the severance check that you were cut? to
So
leave
hang
City
on,
News?
I wasn't booted. First of all,
Okay, you don't
So
like that
most people get
terminology.
walked out the door.
Yeah.
I was able to go to my desk, collect my things, and then I actually went back
no
a few
security
days.
guard.
No security guard.
Oh,
and I
that's
actually went
trust.
back a couple days later to pick up other stuff or
Okay.
whatever. So
And you were not booted. You were just
No, it
told
was-
we're going to stop paying
well,
you.
It's over. So
Was there a tap on the shoulder? Christine Bentley style?
no, it was one of those. Hey Tom, can you meet me tomorrow before your assignment in this office? And I walk into this office and there's 3 people there, and
And
I
they
knew.
have like portfolio binders or something.
And I knew. I
yeah,
knew.
you know right away.
I go,
It's
I
like,
think
oh.
these people are from HR. Yeah. So
But that was your first time through it. So
First time,
Were you
yeah.
blindsided? Like, did you know?
blindsided.
Yeah.
Totally blindsided.
Never
Yeah.
again, right? Like you'll never be blindsided again.
Well,
you
I'll
get
never
one
be in that
blindside.
situation again.
Okay, this is a teaser. We're gonna find out. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me do this. Let me shout out a couple of wonderful pieces of digital real estate, much like 1 Minute Morning, which is a wonderful piece of digital real estate we're going to be talking about in great detail very shortly. But there's a wonderful podcast you should subscribe to, Tom. It's called the Advantaged Investor Podcast. It's from Raymond James Canada. And I know if you're looking to plan, invest, and live smarter, this podcast has insights from leading professionals and provides valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. Subscribe to the Advantaged Investor Podcast, hosted by Chris Cooksey. And I don't know, Tom, I can imagine you have a drawer at home in Pickering with like cables, old cables that you've been collecting for 20 years, and maybe you got old phones in there, and maybe there's old tech.
First, I'm wondering if any of your sponsors want to come on 1 Minute Morning. How did you get so many sponsors?
12 years and 1,411 episodes of
Wow,
of,
that's impressive.
of hard work here.
Yeah, I got all that junk in a drawer at home. You know, IFB. Do you know what an IFB is? Your earpiece,
No IFB.
right? That's a little curly thing that hangs from
oh.
your ear that you
You got
see
some of
people
those?
wearing. I got a million of them.
Okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to recyclemyelectronics.ca. You're going to put in your postal code, and it's going to be like, Tom, go to this place of all that crap, and we'll recycle it properly so the chemicals don't end up in our landfills.
Even my iPhone 6.
Even your iPhone 6, you know. This is what you do. Recyclemyelectronics.ca. Okay, Tom, now I'm ready.
All right.
2015. What happens to you after you leave City TV?
So I left City TV, and then the lovely people at Global News gave me a call because I didn't know what was next, and I wasn't ready to sort of hang it up. But I wasn't really interested in going back full time, whatever. So Global called, and I ended up freelancing there for 3-4 years, and working on the Global Newscast.
Okay, and you have a good experience at Global News. Was Kate Wheeler there?
At Global News? Oh,
Yeah.
Kate was there. Yeah, she was working inside on the assignment desk and sort of overlooking the network, I believe. But she wasn't on air, but she was working in there. Yeah, so I would see her on occasion.
Did you know she's Australian?
I do know that.
Okay, you know a lot of things, Tom. Okay, so why? I mean, we kind of teased this earlier, but the pandemic hits, and then why does it? Why do you no longer work at Global News?
So what happened at Global News was the pandemic hit. There were a bunch of layoffs, and as I'm told, the union wasn't big on all the layoffs, and it was kind of like, well, how come that guy's still working?
Right.
So that was me.
And when you're freelance, you're an easy tap. Like it's like.
But you're also not connected or protected.
right.
Right? You still got to pay union dues. So that's the story I was told. I was told to go lay low for a couple of weeks, and that turned into the end of it. So that's how that ended.
And then what happened? Okay, so this is 2021 when you leave Global News. What have you been up to since 2021? Tell me everything about 1 Minute Morning. I'm all ears.
So 1 Minute Morning, I started, we've only been up about 6 months, but numbers are doing well. It's funny when you look at technology. 1 Minute Morning is something I couldn't have done 10 years ago. So I thought there's something missing in the morning. You know, Warhol talked about that 15 minutes of fame. It's now 15 seconds of fame. Or, you know, TikTok will tell you it's 1.5 to 3 seconds that you've got to grab somebody's attention.
Are you on TikTok?
I'm on. That's our biggest numbers.
Okay.
On TikTok.
Okay.
Funny enough, I wasn't even going to go on TikTok. I thought these crazy young kids want nothing to do with this, and it's our biggest audience. So God bless them.
Okay.
And so I thought I had this idea for just a 1 minute news show, and it's a full show in a minute. So we've got headlines, we've got weather, we've got 4 stories, and we've got a wrap up at the end, all within a minute. And if you think it's easier writing less than writing longer, you're incorrect. It takes
Harder,
something.
right? I think it'd be harder to edit it down to a minute.
It's way harder
Yeah.
to get that writing down to a point where it fits inside the format. So I had the idea to do. I love the name. I love a good alliteration. 1 Minute Morning.
Right.
Designed everything myself. Right. God bless Canva, and put it together. And we just it's a very small team that works on it. Very small, 2 people.
That's twice the size of my team, Tom.
So you know what?
I'm jealous of your size.
I needed.
Give me that measuring tape.
Hang on. Here's a sound effect. So I knew I needed a wildly old, experienced news guy.
That's you.
No, even more so than me. So I reached out. I found one. I used to work at City with him. He likes to remain anonymous, so
Can you give us a clue?
No, I can't.
Is it Gord Martineau?
It's not Gord. No, I want Gord to fill in for me when I'm on holiday. Do you have Gord's number?
I do.
Oh, do you? I got him on Facebook or somewhere. Anyway, so you know what? We just said we're just going to do this and see what happened. Our first month we went to air, we had like 40,000 watches, and now we're pushing 200,000. So
That's big numbers.
it's not bad.
That's
You know,
huge. Okay.
it's not that gazillion million that people get on
But this
some.
is Canada, Tom.
I know.
Like you're
And-
not doing. This is not about. This is is it Toronto centric?
It's just Toronto GTA.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like you're dining in my kitchen here. Now, listen, Tom, I'm going to have to erase you from competition. Okay. Tell me all the platforms where I can access 1 Minute Morning. I didn't even know it was on TikTok, but I don't know anything going on TikTok because I'm actually not on TikTok.
Oh, you have
even
to
though
be.
I'm told I'm supposed to be on it.
Oh, you have to
I got a lot going on. Do I need to go into this TikTok rabbit hole? But I trust you. A lot of people. Mohit was just here telling me, why aren't you on TikTok? Ian Services, I get on TikTok. I'm still thinking about it. But you're on TikTok, but I see it on LinkedIn and I see it on Twitter. Is there anywhere else we can find 1 Minute Morning?
Yes, kids. So write this down at home.
I'm writing this down.
Here's the beauty of 1 Minute Morning, if I have to say to. It's one of those rare social media content posts that can translate across all platforms. So if you see some crazy kid put something up on TikTok, that's not going to work on LinkedIn. But 1 Minute Morning travels across all platforms very well. So we're on TikTok,
Right.
Instagram,
Okay.
Facebook,
Okay.
LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter.
You got your bases covered here. Very
Yeah.
impressive.
And our biggest numbers are by far on Twitter, which really shocked me.
You mean Twitter?
Or sorry,
You mean
TikTok.
you mean.
Did I
Yeah,
say sorry?
yeah, 'cause
TikTok.
You mentioned that earlier.
By far.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. This is. I'm learning a lot. I feel like maybe we need to get in bed together, Tom. What's going on here? Okay. So I'm learning a lot.
Should I get the tape measure out again?
Hey now. That's funny because I have yesterday. I've had Dave Thomas on before, but still it's Dave Thomas and
Wow.
Ian Thomas, and we're chatting. And I don't know. I didn't have any notes for this because I had a couple notes, but I really just wanted to get them talking and then maybe ask more questions about Tears Are Not Enough because I'm annoying like that. But off the top, we're like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, yeah. And then so Dave is in LA and it's warm in LA, of course, and then Ian's in Dundas, Ontario, where it was cold. And yesterday in
So he
Toronto, it was
went
really
home.
cold. Yeah, he lives in Dundas, Ontario,
Wow.
where he's from. Yeah. So, right. So I'm like, oh, you got the cold we have. And then I just share a little anecdote from the day, which is I did a 15-kilometer ride on the waterfront trail, and I had to shorten it because my wiener froze. Okay, this happened to me yesterday. Like I was
Cold
really,
enough
I was
to-
bundled up and everything. I had really good gloves on, and I had boots on, and I had a balaclava, and I thought I had it all covered, but my wiener froze. So I'm like, I better get inside because this is a very valuable appendage, and I need it for many, many things. So I got to get inside. But I'm sure I'm like Ian and Dave Thomas are your special guests, and you open up with a story about your penis freezing. Like I'm like, Mike, Tom Hayes would never do such a thing.
No, you got that right. Hey, do you need the tape measure? Not for that.
1 minute, it shrinks like a frightened turtle. Okay, so 1 minute morning, people can find it in all those platforms.
All those platforms, and we're live. It's an early start, man. We're 5:00 in the morning editorial, and
Are you nuts though? Like you're.
I know I'm not a morning
Is the
guy.
money that good that you can get up at
No.
5 a.m. and start working on this? You're nuts.
No,
But you need this to sustain. Like if you're going to go long with it, you said it's been 6 months. If you want to go, I'm on year 12, Mr. Hayes. Okay,
Wow,
That's a
I
little
got some catching up.
Yeah. So if you want to go long, you have to create a situation that you can like sustain for the long term. You can't be
Right.
doing work at 5 unless they park a Brinks truck in your Pickering driveway and say you're getting up at 5 a.m.
that's the hope.
Yeah, okay.
That's the hope.
But what would the world change if you did it at 7?
Well, it's the beauty about TikTok is the you can check out the numbers and the data and the algorithms and whatnot, so you can see where things spike. So we're up at 8:00, and that's our biggest spike of the day. Also, the show is intended for the person at home getting ready for the day. They could be doing lunches, trying to get their stuff together for the office. Maybe they're not watching or listening, but they play this in a minute. And when they get to work in the elevator and someone says, hey, did you hear about the $1.8 billion deficit at City Hall? They can go, yeah, I did hear about that.
Yeah,
Right.
It's digestible. 1 minute, yeah. And I hear you earlier. You're talking about the video, the MP. Let's pretend it's an MP4 file that's 1 minute long. It does transfer nicely to all social media. Like you don't hit
all
any
platforms.
caps, any limits. You can put it everywhere.
All platforms.
Okay, good on you, man. So good. So your evidence. There's life after mainstream media.
That's a great question, a great thought, because traditionally, so when the boss comes and says, you're out of here, they used to decide that it was over for you. And you don't have to do that anymore. And that's what I started thinking about. Why do I need to get hired or called or whatever?
Right.
Why don't I just do something on my own? The TV is now your phone. Same screen. And why can't I produce something and just put it out there that works? And I started to. I've got a couple of sponsors. They called me because they liked it.
That's always good.
It is. Because here's the thing. If you want to sponsor something on the internet, everybody puts content out on the internet to conquer the world. So I'm going to put this video out and I want a gazillion views all around the world. We're not about that. We're just Toronto. So if you want to advertise locally, it's tough to find a place to put your ad because you're just in Toronto. So by doing a Toronto newscast, that allows our sponsors to really get highlighted in the GTA.
Well, you've inspired me. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a Toronto-centric podcast. This is what I'm going to do. And you've inspired me. I hope 1 Minute Morning has enormous success.
Me too.
And maybe one day you're so successful that you can sleep in, because that 5 a.m. wake up, I'd be tapping out at that.
Even though
I'd
I
be
am
tapping out
now.
at that.
Oh, it's...
Do you do it on weekends?
No, that's when... You know what? You don't appreciate a weekend more than getting up at 5 o'clock Monday to Friday.
You got it all backwards, man. You know, you weren't waking up at 5 a.m. for the mainstream media.
No, I
gig,
wasn't.
Were you?
No, I wasn't.
So you do decades of good service in mainstream media, then you start working for yourself, and that's when you set the alarm for 5 a.m.
That's when I set
You're
the alarm.
doing it wrong. We'll talk offline here. You got it backwards, Tom. Tom, what a pleasure. Did you enjoy your Toronto Mike debut?
Awesome. And the beer was cold.
And the beer was cold. I'll send you home with some. Don't leave without the lasagna. We'll take a photo by the Toronto Tree.
Tree, the new name.
The new name. I'm gonna make it stick. Any final thoughts here before I play us out here?
I've got a documentary coming out quickly about a trip to Africa. I followed some surgeons in Africa a few months ago. Fantastic people
Wow.
who do great work, and it'll be online shortly.
Amazing. I'll share it with the FOTMs when you do your official launch there. That's amazing. No, it was great to meet you. I was warned you were a nice guy. I'm here to confirm you are indeed the sweetheart I was warned you might be. Dana Levinston said you're a good
Dana.
one. So,
Hi, Dana.
Dana, who was at the Madonna concert, and I read it finished at 12:30 a.m. and that's not cool. All these
Wow.
all these
It's past my bedtime for 5 a.m.
I don't think that's cool, but hey, I once stayed up till like 3 a.m. for a Rusty show, so who am I to judge? And that brings us to the end of our 1,411th show. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Toronto Mike.
And soon TikTok.
Yeah, I'm looking into it. So, Tom, are you always the numeric 1 and then minute morning?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, number one. Numeric 1. Number 1 minute morning. So 1MM is our short handle. But just look up at 1 minute morning or at Tom Hayes News.
You'll find it. You'll find it.
Yeah.
Let Tom know what
Every
you think.
morning, Monday to Friday, folks.
Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. That's Palma Pasta. That's Recycle My Electronics. That's Raymond James Canada. And of course, Ridley Funeral Home. See you all tomorrow when my special guest is Anne Marie Akins. See you all then.
I know it's true, yeah. I know it's true. How about you? While they're picking up trash and they're putting down roads. And they're brokering stocks, the class struggle explodes. And I play this guitar just the best that I can.